Good morning and welcome to Anmaree's Workshop. This is one of those wonderful, delicious times of the day to sew. I'm still in my pajamas, but I had such an inspiration for a reversible garment that this is a sew along. And I want to show you what my inspiration was, the pattern I'm going to be using, and the fabric I'm going to be using today. Now, as you know, I love a reversible garment, and my inspiration to use a Lantana shirt dress, which is a free PDF pattern by Mood, is this slip that I bought from Temu. And I just love it, but I don't know if I want to wear it by itself. But the Lantana shirt dress is a perfect opportunity for me to combine this because the shirt dress stops about here and opens to the front. So these are the two Ankara fabrics that I want to use. This is the first one. You all, I think I bought this from House of Mommy Wata. I'm not exactly sure. This is one side of the shirt dress I want to make. And this is the other. And the color that ties both of them together is the beige. So I'm going to create some beige piping as a way to separate both sides when I create the garment. Now I do have a hack where I use fusible webbing to make it very crisp along the edges so that there's no rollback. But in this case, I think I want to make the piping. If I can't find the exact match of the beige I want, right there, then I will use the fusible method. But let's hope in my stash, especially 100% cotton in my quilting stash, I can find a beige that will complement both sides. All right, first things first, we've got to put together our PDF pattern. This is the Lantana shirt dress diagram for printing and cutting out. The directions are on the website, moodfabrics.com. Lantana, Lantana shirt dress goes from size 02 to 2830 in the sizes. Now, make sure, you always have to be sure that when you're printing out your pattern, there will be a test square with the dimensions on it. Don't skip that step because you need to make sure that you're printing out the pattern at the percentage scale that the pattern is supposed to be printed on if you're doing a PDF pattern. So you have to make sure when you print out that first test page, don't skip it, make sure it exactly meets the size of the scale. You might have to up your thing to 100% or bring it down to 98% to get that scale box right so that your pattern fits. So I usually throw on a movie, a podcast, or something so I can glue my tiles together. I have glued my tiles together and initially cut out my pattern pieces. So we're ready to place our pattern pieces on the fabric. I am going to do a bust adjustment and a sleeve adjustment on this pattern because I have fleshy upper arms, and sometimes you have to accommodate that my particular size, even though it is a 20. But sometimes a 20 arm is a lot smaller than my upper arm, and I don't like it to be tight there. I do a bust adjustment also, which you can see on, I will put a link below for the Nancy Zeman bust adjustment on how you can adjust your upper bust adjustment, because there is a marked difference between my pattern sizes for my shoulders and my bust measurement. So I want my shoulders to fit, but I want to leave enough space for my bust. So that's why you do a bust adjustment. All right, so I'm ready to cut out my pattern pieces. So I'm going to lay out my fabric on my banquet table, and I'm also going to double up. So I'm going to start with the blue, and then I'm going to lay the beige on top and line them up. and get ready. Now remember, I've washed these fabrics and ironed them so I can kind of see how they're going to behave with each other. I've also tested the weight and know that I like how they feel together. It's not too heavy. Okay, so the first thing I'm doing is cutting out the skirt. Now, I wanted, because the skirt had a vent in the back, a giant pleat in the back, they gave you the option to cut the pieces separately, but I really, really wanted to have the back piece on the fold. And so I had to cut a piece of the skirt off, like a little triangle, to make sure that it would fit properly. Now, right now here I'm cutting the front, and it doesn't have that edge, and we'll talk about that edge later. Now, because I wanted to have the back of my dress on the fold, I had to sacrifice a triangle or a sliver of the part of the skirt. So when I cut it out, there is a little bit of a seam allowance that I cut right here because I am going to add a little sliver of a triangle in the back. It will not be noticeable, but it will be sure that I will have enough fabric to make this dress. And here are my triangles to add to the back of the dress. So I added the triangle on, and it's in an inconspicuous place. No one will notice, and it gave me enough allowance to fit the whole pattern piece in. Okay, so I think that's enough for today. I've cut all my pattern pieces out. Had to make provisions for the amount of fabric I had. I had a little less of the light brown caramel color than I had of the blue, but that worked out. And now I'm going to make myself some cream colored bias tape tomorrow. The bias tape was a wash. The color was not a good match, so I decided to go with my fusible web hack for making reversible seams. So here I'm just marking my sleeve head and attaching the cuff to the sleeve before I insert it in the dress. Now, most sewers know that you spend a lot of time pressing. I think it's one of the things that I think if you're a new sewer and decide to take something on like this, it's not my recommendation for the first project you do, but I tell you, the more you press, the easier it is for you to get things to line up. All right, so now remember, everything I've done to the blue dress, I'm going to be doing to the beige and brown dress, because you're actually creating two dresses that are going to be put together to create the final reversible piece. So here I've got my sleeves made with their cuffs. And once again, whatever I do when I create the brown, I also have to create the blue. Now I've made the pleat in the back piece of the garment, and I've attached the yoke. And then once again, I'm going to press, 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 because I want everything to lay really nice and flush, especially since I'm putting two garments together. Now it's time to attach the front of the dress to the back of the dress at the shoulder seams before we add the collar. Now on the collar, I use that method with the stitch witchery because I made the piping with the cream piping that I was going to use, and the color wasn't right, and I would have to wait too long to try and match the beige. So I just decided to do the method with the stitch witchery inside so that both sides are independent. So you can't really see that much of anything on either side. So that's what I did to create the collar. Now, transparency, this is where I made a major mistake. I added the collar stand to the neckline of the dress, matching up the colors on each side. The blue on the blue and the brown on the brown. Wrong, because when you fold it over, you're going to need to have the blue and the brown on opposite sides. Or when you fold your collar over, you're going to have that fabric showing. So to go back, unpick my neckline that I had put in and reboot it, and then get ready to sandwich it between the two dresses. Now, I'm showing you this one, and the mistake was made here, and I figured it out at this point. But I lost the film of sandwiching it in once I had made the correction. So what you should be seeing there is a brown collar sitting on top of a blue dress, and a blue collar sitting on top of a brown collar sitting on top of a blue dress. So the reason you do that is when you flip your collar over, you need the blue showing on the right side and the brown showing on the right side. After stitching your neckline in place, you are ready to trim and press. Now on this garment, you're going to have to trim between, and I think I've said this already, between the neckband to the point in which the last part of the facing is, because they thought that you were only going to make one garment. So in order to make the facing along the neck edge, along the front edge, they had you fold over once and then fold over again and create its own self-facing. You're not going to use that because you're going to be using the other garment as the facing. So you're going to have to trim that if you decide to do this particular pattern. So you're going to basically be completing two garments, but you're going to turn them inside out and stitch them right sides to right side along certain parts. So for instance, in this case, you're going to be stitching them along the neckline edge. So you're not really going to be, so you'll see this is how it is stitched, but I have stitch witchery inside. So there's only so far you can go here. I wish I could show you, but it's inside here. The stitch witchery, you can kind of feel the hardness there. And that is what keeps each side to stay on their own side and not roll. Okay, I think you can kind of almost see a little line here. So that's where the stitch witchery is enclosed. Now, unfortunately, this pattern does not include pockets. And you know, we can't live without pockets. So I went into my bag of pockets to find a pocket that would work with this shirt dress. I decided on this longer pocket, and I'm going to go ahead and attach that to each side of the shirt dresses. Now I will include a link in the description box to my other video, which was 10 tips to making a reversible garment. And one of them is, when you make a reversible garment with pockets, it is in your best interest to put a pocket on each side of the dress opposite to it. In other words, say in this case, The blue dress would have a left-hand pocket, and the brown beige dress would have a right-hand pocket, so that the two pocket sacks do not compete. Another tip I like to use is I make sure that both hems are free. I do not seal it up because these are different fabrics. They're not both, you know, this is cotton and this is a polyester poly blend. And so even though I leave the garment out to hang for a couple days to see it gets all the stretch out of it, and everything's been washed, I still leave it open so that if the fabric changes its length, I don't end up with a bubbled hem. Now, I also told you that I chose to use snaps to close this garment. I chose these really healthy size snaps to close the garment in this case. And then on the opposite side, I stitched on the buttons that coordinate with the fabric. So on this side, there's the caramel colored with the brass, and then on the other side is the crystal flowers that go with this side of the fabric, and then they snap. It just really was a much better finish than doing buttonholes. All right, and it's a great way to finish and have both sides matched to the right side. All right, and secured. It's the healthy size snap. Surprisingly, this was a very quick item to make. It just came together very, very nicely, especially if you found your right side. I think I spent longer sewing on the snaps and the buttons than than sewing together the whole garment. It was very, very satisfying. It's a good pattern. So that's it. I'm going to include some pictures of the finished garment, and if you want any other instructions about it, please message me inside. Please leave a comment to let me know if it's something you might try. If you have any questions, if I wasn't clear on something, I'm open to coaching. Alrighty, I hope you're having fun and so happy.